What's going on, everyone? This here is a 2020 update of the Huawei MateBook X Pro, one of the premium ultra-portable laptops of this generation. This is not a new design though, in fact it's a hardware refresh of the original model launched back in 2018, and that comes with some drawbacks. We'll get to them in a bit, but first we'll touch on the external design, inputs and screen quality. Oh, and before we start, please take a second to hit that thumbs up button for the YouTube algorithm, it makes a huge difference for our small channel. Okay, so the X Pro is still one of the few available Ultrabooks with a 3x2 screen, and that makes it compact for a 14-inch laptop, but also slightly taller than the standard 14-inch 16x9 options in this class. As a result, the design allows for a spacious armrest, a large clickpad and a full-size keyboard, as well as a quad speaker system firing through these grills that flank the keyboard and these side cuts in the bottom panel. Overall, the X Pro is roughly the same size as the MacBook Pro 13 and a bit taller and narrower than a modern 16x9 14-inch notebook such as this ZenBook UX425. It does get a larger screen than the MacBook though, thanks to these thinner bezels all around. Yet that's standard for Windows laptops these days, and the ZenBook actually gets even thinner bezels. There's also no camera at the top of the screen that's still implemented into the keyboard between the F6 and the F7 keys as an impractical and rather washed out nose cam. There's also no IR Hello camera, but you do get a pretty good finger sensor baked into the power button. Format aside, this MateBook X Pro is also one of the sturdiest and nicest built Windows Ultrabooks on the market, with a stiff unibody interior and a strong screen chassis, plus a layer of protective glass over the touch-enabled display. I also find this to be a good-looking laptop with a smudge-friendly dark grey finishing, a clean interior design, and some Huawei branding elements on the screen and on the lid. Perhaps these could have been a little more muted though. This is also fairly ergonomic and practical, yet the nitpicker in me finds room for improvement. The screen is held in place by these smooth hinges that allow easy one-hand operations and adjustments, but it can only go back to about 150 degrees and not all the way flat as I'd want on an Ultrabook. Huawei could have also implemented grippier rubber feet here, and I would have also appreciated a slightly friendlier front lip design. As it is, with the beveled aluminum edge and the sharper part around this notch, it can unpleasantly bite into the wrists. As for the I/O, that's lined on the edges with two USB-C ports with Thunderbolt 3 support and a headphone jack on the left side and a full-size USB slot on the right. Huawei also bundles the laptop with an USB-C port extender that adds VGA, USB-A and C and HDMI, so pretty much everything you want on this sort of a laptop, except for a card reader. There's some way past that with the included Huawei Share functionality, which lets you transfer content from compatible Huawei phones straight into the laptop via a simple touch, enabled through NFC. However, this only works with Huawei phones though. Wireless 5 and Bluetooth 5 are also available on this laptop and not an implementation of the latest Wi-Fi 6 standard, as with most other 2020 notebooks. It still proved fast and reliable in our tests, so I wouldn't fret on it much. As far as inputs go, Huawei implemented a standard full-size chiclet keyboard on this laptop, and it's one of the best in its class. It is mostly tailored towards fast touch typers and those who enjoy this kind of short stroke implementation though. With the limited resistance, soft feedback and short travel, this is a quick typer once you get used to the feedback. However, those of you coming from a desktop computer might struggle at first, and I was also expecting this to be quieter than it is. The layout is simple and mostly fine, and the keys are plastic and flat. However, there are no dedicated page up, page down, home and end keys, not even as secondaries bound to other keys. Professional users might miss those, and they are implemented on other 14-inch notebooks these days. I'm also not a big fan of Huawei's keyboard lighting. They went with contrasty black keys with white writing and illumination. However, the included LEDs are fairly dim, and even with the shallow profile, light still creeps out from underneath some of the keycaps. There's also no physical caps lock indicator. The ClickPad, on the other hand, is among the best you can find on a Windows laptop. It's a glass surface with precision drivers, and it's large enough to accommodate daily swipes and gestures. It also includes smooth and satisfying physical clicks, and I can only complain about the slight rattle when tapping this firmware in its lower half. The MateBook X Pro also gets one of the best displays you can find on any ultra-portable laptop right now. First off, it's 3x2, so taller and more practical than the standard 16x9 or 16x10 screens out there, with more vertical room for your content. Then, this is also a touchscreen. These alone are going to put the X Pro on many maps, and they're backed up by the excellent quality panel, with 600 plus nits of brightness, 1800:1 contrast ratio, wide viewing angles, and a resolution of 3000 by 2000 pixels that translates in crisp and smooth images and texts. The 68% Adobe RGB color coverage is also fine for daily use, but might not suffice for professional color work, especially since we also notice some slight uniformity issues in the right side of our panel. Nonetheless, as you'll see in a bit, this also lacks the performance required by those professional applications anyway. Our test version gets an i7-10750U processor, 16GB of memory, 1TB of fast SSD storage and dual graphics, with the Intel UHD chip and dedicated NVIDIA MX250. The SSD is the only upgradable part here. Opening up the laptop's back is an easy task, but once inside you'll notice that the SSD is hidden behind the thermal module, and you'll need to take that out as well, which will void your warranty. That's complicated, so it's best to just order the desired configuration from the get-go. However, Huawei only offers this in two variants, this higher tier i7 and MX250 model with 16GB of RAM and 1TB of storage, or a more affordable i5 model with 16GB of RAM, 512GB of storage and Intel UHD only graphics. Both are perfectly capable of handling everyday activities, and it's nice to see 16GB of memory on the lower tier model as well. But don't expect much in terms of performance in demanding loads though, the X Pro struggles when put to serious work. Both the CPU and the GPU clock down when pushed, and the limited thermal module is the culprit here. Huawei tries to keep temperatures and noise levels down, which is perfectly normal for this sort of a computer, but that's only possible with a performance tool. You notice that in benchmarks, but especially in longer sustained tests such as the Cinebench R15 loop test. The i7 processor only runs at 12 watts of power on this laptop, which translates in low frequencies, cool temperatures and very quiet fans, but also limited scores. For comparison, this same Intel i7 stabilizes at between 15 to 25 watt in other 14-inch laptops we've tested lately, with a significant increase in performance and a slight increase in noise. We're also looking at a limited performance in combined CPU and GPU loads, but also in games, which you might want to try knowing there's a DGPU on this configuration, albeit an entry-level MX250. We ran a couple of titles on the best performance Windows profile, and here's what we got. Older games such as Need for Speed Most Wanted or BioShock are playable at Full HD resolution and low settings on this notebook, while more recent titles are not, where you'd have to trim the resolution to 720p for 30+ frame rates. Even so, the performance is not what you'd expect from the hardware, with both the CPU and GPU running at fairly low power levels and frequencies, as shown in these logs. Furthermore, you should consider that the older titles might not support the screen's 3:2 aspect ratio or its higher resolution, which means that you'll have to accept stretched images in most cases, or at least some black bars around the content. Okay, let's get to that culprit, which is this laptop's peculiar thermal design. It looks complex on a first glimpse, with a fan and several heat pipes covering most of the motherboard, but a closer inspection reveals that these heat pipes are not connected to any radiators. Instead, they mostly provide passive cooling, and the fan creates a slight airflow between the motherboard and this thermal module. This sort of design proves inefficient for the kind of hardware in this laptop, especially since the fan is not allowed to spin fast and with a limited intake and output air grills. The fan is almost inaudible with daily use and ramps up to quiet levels of 41 to 42 dB with games. However, even with these compromises, plenty of the internal heat spreads onto the exterior chassis, with a large part of the interior going past 50 degrees with games and running in the 35 to 40 degrees with daily use, which is still a little on the warmer side. In conclusion, the limited performance and high external temperatures make the X Pro unsuited for light gaming and demanding CPU plus GPU tasks in general, in comparison to better implementation of the same sort of hardware. And that's without even discussing this platform's overall worth at this point, given the excellent Renoir Ryzen alternatives out there, but also the Intel and AMD units with updated NVIDIA MX350 graphics. At the same time, the X Pro is still a snappy and competent daily driver, running quietly and merely warm in this case. Just stick with the more affordable i5 models, there's no reason paying extra for the i7 and the MX250 GPU here. Speaking of pricing, this 2020 MateBook X Pro is available in two variants, starting at around €1,600 or £1,400 over here for the i5 model, and about 300 more for the i7 variant. That's expensive. Before we wrap this up, I should also mention the fact that there's a 56 Wh battery inside this MateBook X Pro, and even if the high-resolution screen takes its toll, this still lasts for a fair bit on a charge. Expect 5 to 6 hours of real daily use and 9 to 10 hours of video. The laptop charges via USB-C and the 65-watt charger is included with this configuration. Okay, let's draw the line on this notebook. 2 years ago, when Huawei announced the original MateBook X Pro, it was ahead of its time and superior to many of its competitors. Quick forward to 2020 though, the sturdy craftsmanship, the excellent 3x2 display, the quick and comfortable keyboard and the fine everyday performance and battery life are still among its prime selling points, but the limited thermal design and performance in demanding loads, corroborated with the steep pricing, eat into its overall worth. As mentioned already, I stick with the i5 models of this laptop, but that's if you're fine with just 512GB of storage, as otherwise swapping that up for a larger SSD is going to prove challenging. Overall though, I still find the 2020 MateBook X Pro to be one of the better premium ultrabooks out there, yet I'm not entirely convinced it is worth the kind of money Huawei asks for it these days, given its quirks and the amount of solid competition available now, with most of them selling for less. That wraps up this review, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on this MateBook X Pro in the comment section down below. Is this still a good buy right now, or would you rather go with a Dell XPS or maybe a Surface laptop, or maybe one of the new Ryzen 4000 ultraportables instead? I'll talk to you in the comments, and if you're still here at this point, please hit that thumbs up button if you liked the video, and subscribe for more of our laptop reviews. See you in the next one.